In this video, I'm going to go over some useful features of the camera tool. This tool is in all versions of Animate, and I believe it was even in some later versions of Flash. And in the past, this tool wasn't built into the application, so what you could do is make a virtual camera and program it in ActionScript. But luckily now it's a built-in official tool. So you could just press it to get started, and it will create its own camera. If I just undo, you can also just press C and it will create a camera as well. So once created, you'll see that if you put your mouse cursor over it, it has this kind of inverted way of moving it from side to side, so X and Y axis. This takes a little bit getting used to, but it is actually quite a good way of moving the camera. And the main part you'll probably be using is the slider down the bottom, and it has two main functions. So the function you'll probably be using the most is the slider for zoom. So if you just do this, it will zoom in and out as you'd expect. And then if you want to rotate it, you just have to toggle on to the rotate mode and you will get the rotation. It's worth noting that although for most casual use of this, you can use the slider, it isn't really massively accurate as you would expect. So what you can do as well with the camera layer selected is go to properties, and then as always you have the more precise values for X and Y, zoom and rotation. So if you have, for example, a more specific idea for rotation in mind, you can just input its actual degree value. So going back to the camera tool down here in your layers, so it's interesting to note that the camera layer acts quite differently to normal layers. So whereas with normal layers, the layer that's above everything else, if you click onto it, it will select it instead of a layer below it. The camera tool kind of acts like a hidden tool where you can't really select it unless you actually select the camera tool first. So if I just have the normal selection tool and I start clicking away, it will start actually selecting my graphics instead of the camera. So this makes it much easier because you don't have to manually lock the camera when you want to move your graphics. It just acts like a kind of invisible layer, but it's still there. So that's brilliant. What's also really good with the camera tool is that you can parent objects to it. And by that, it means that it actually attaches it to the camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my layers. So I've got my background layer here, and then I have my graphic for my yellow square. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select to parent my square to the camera. So what you can do is if you want to parent all layers, you can just press this, but I actually don't want to do that, so I'm going to unclick it. I actually just want to go to my square and then just go here and press parent. So as you can see, the actual square moved to the dimensions of the camera. And now whenever I move the camera, it will also move this graphic. So if I go back to my camera tool, and then I'm going to go to my zoom slider, and you'll see that it looks a bit strange, but it is indeed having it so that the yellow square is moving with my camera. And as mentioned, it does take a bit of getting used to. So if I went ahead and parented my background, you can see that it all goes back to proportions again, because now they are both parented to the camera. And actually, if I move it around, nothing actually happens because there's nothing to change, because whenever I move the camera, I move all of my background and the square graphics here. So I'm just going to unparent them here, and you'll see that wherever I actually zoomed my camera in before last has actually come back into effect because the graphics are not attached anymore. So when you detach parenting from the camera to your objects, it just reverts to where the actual graphics are placed on the stage. And then if you want to get rid of the camera here, you can just press the delete button, and then the view of your stage will go back to the original view, which is just based around this black line here to show where the normal stage is to move around your objects. So I hope you found this video useful. As always, if you have any suggestions or requests, please leave them in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next video.